So my name is Emily Morehead, and I am a co-owner at The Couch Therapy. So we work with moms and couples and families. I specialize in grief and loss at The Couch, and it's a huge passion of mine. So I was really excited when I got to connect with Peyton. I've decided she's my new BFF, and we're going to go to coffee once we're done social distancing. But until then, she and I had a really great conversation just about how this time is so weird for those of us who are experiencing grief and what that's like. So I kind of wrote a presentation that I hope speaks to you guys tonight. We're going to talk about the calm in the storm and walking through grief during a forced slow. And I think that's an important part of it. So I am a therapist in the state of Texas. I operate in an office out of Plano. I also do telehealth in Texas, but I'm not your therapist. So nothing I share tonight is medical advice that gets me out of all kinds of trouble. There's my disclaimer. So let's get started.
Thank you.
Yes. So I'm going to set a few ground rules. I think that we always need rules. My goal for tonight is for us to talk about how to take care of ourselves during this really difficult time. When I say that, I want to acknowledge that tonight I might say something that might be triggering to you, and logging off is the best choice for you. Do it. It will not hurt my feelings. It will not hurt Peyton's feelings. We want you to take care of yourself. If you need to stretch or, run to the bathroom, make sure to turn off your screen, but take care of your body tonight, because we are going to be talking about some hard things, and they're going to bring up some things for you tonight, obviously. After the webinar tonight, if you are feeling a little bit down or icky, just acknowledge that we talked about grief. And so you're having some residual experience from bringing up some of your trauma. And so lean into whatever that looks like for you, any kind of self-care. Maybe you watch a junky reality TV show after this. Maybe you take a big bath, or you just have a nice hot cup of tea. Whatever it is, take care of yourself after this, because anytime you're talking about grief and loss, it's really hard to kind of settle our bodies back down. And I know doing this late can kind of generate some of that. So today we are going to talk about, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. I don't know if you guys know that. I'm super aware of that. We're going to talk about what that does to us when we are actively experiencing grief. We're going to talk about trauma and our own snow globes in that. It's my new favorite term. And we're going to dig into that. I'm going to give you some tools, because most of my tools have been taken from me with social distancing, with my routines and rituals. So I'm going to hopefully pour some tools back into you. And then we're going to talk about sistering, and that's exactly what Gathering Hope is. So we'll open up for questions at the end, and then Peyton's going to share some really cool resource information with you, and we'll wrap up. We are very cognizant of your time, and we will respect your 45 minutes to an hour max. So just be aware of that. And like Peyton said, it's going to be recorded. So if you have to pop off for something, feel free to do that. So I'm actually going to have to move up my screen a little bit. So we're in the middle of a global pandemic. Like I said, I don't know if anyone told you, but I am aware, the news has told me that obviously, life has changed for all of us. And what that means is no one's rocking it. So if you've been on Instagram, if you've, seen some funny stories going around on Facebook, like, we are all in the middle of a whole new routine and a whole new ritual. What this means is that we either feel terrified, we either feel guilty, or we feel like our life has gone on as normal, kind of depending on what your lifestyle is right now. So if you are a frontlines worker, you are having to truck through probably some of the hardest days in your career. If you are like me, you're at home learning how to work from home when that has not been a system that you've had to have before. And in that feeling, there is gratefulness and there is grief, because there's a lot of instability in the world. So whatever it is, we are not used to it, right? Like, this is a whole new experience for all of us. But what happened for me, I guess it was probably about 5 weeks ago when my family officially kind of hunkered down, maybe 6 weeks ago. We've been cautious. We followed the rules. I need you to know that about me. What basically happened is that I had a flood of emotion on a Sunday, and I did not know what was happening. I am a therapist and I am a believer in therapy. I've spent 7 years in counseling, processing my own grief and loss experiences and my own trauma history. And I'm pretty self-aware about my body, but something happened and I was flooded with an experience of emotion. And basically what I noticed was that I was being forced to slow down. And that is something that did not serve me well. Busyness has probably served us all really well. I don't know about you, but when we push through life and we go to the next event, to the next event, to the next social event, to the next promotion, to the next career move, like we serve ourselves in a really maladaptive but adaptive way. Busyness keeps our minds off of our grief and loss. It's not always the worst thing, but it's all not the best thing, especially when we're forced to stop the busyness on halt on a dime. So I did not expect to immediately lose that coping skill, and I'm assuming you probably didn't either. Busyness has kept us from sitting in some of the trenches that we've needed to sit in. If you've gone to therapy, you know that before you walk into that therapist's office, your mind is turned on to, here's what I want to cover in this session. I know this is going to feel hard. I'm going to work through it. Like I'll leave here and I'll feel bad after, but maybe the next day I'll feel better. And the pandemic took it all from us all. It forced us to sit in the middle of this. And basically what's happened is our trauma is bubbling up. And our trauma is bubbling up in weird ways. One, because this is a whole new normal. And two, because we are being forced to sit in something without our normal, typical coping skills. So I'm going to give you the analogy of the snow globe, right? We're a snow globe. All of us are. And whatever image you want to put in the middle of your snow globe, Glennon Doyle Melton recently said that she had a dragon in the middle of hers. Mine is a house that I kind of imagine. And so we think about us as snow globes, and the busyness is just shaking it up all the time. The snow globe is constantly moving, the snow is up. And a lot of times if you've got like a fancy snow globe, you can't really see the middle because there's enough snow. The middle is just covered up. And when the snow globe starts to settle and you put it back on that shelf, it's clear, right? You can see the exact image in the middle, right? And that's our grief and trauma. So when we've shaken it up, we've stayed busy, like, sure, maybe we've like talked about it, we've come to support group, we've gone to therapy, but like still during the day, we can keep it shaken up. And then it sits still in a global pandemic. That trauma is the only thing visible and clear. And if it's not visible and clear to you, you've got some extra coping skills going on, but you've also probably got an iceberg. So you're mad, grumpy, or whatever because your partner didn't load the dishwasher, but really it's that snow globe, right? It's that trigger point inside of all of us. And as it settles, we see it and it's clear as day, but we have to learn how to see it. So let's talk about that. So we have to lean in. When I say lean in, I genuinely mean we have to practice curiosity. We have to be imaginative towards what the root is. I am an attachment-based therapist, and so I genuinely believe that we have a root to all of our hurts, all of our pains. There's always a connection there. We have to lean in and want to look for that. Because if I'm just mad that you didn't load the dishwasher, I'm probably not acknowledging what's actually going on for me. And so if I'm wondering why I'm crying on a random Sunday and why I'm feeling completely anxious when I haven't been in years, I have to lean in and be curious about that. What we do, though, is we judge it. So we're like, oh my gosh, I'm so anxious. I must be having a terrible day, or I'm in a terrible mood. Oh, we're judging it. We're judging, oh, I'm feeling like I need to eat the entire pantry, or I need to gouge down that bottle of wine. We're judging ourselves because what we're doing, when really all we're doing is we're trying to take care of ourselves without addressing the root. So when we lean in to try to understand what that trigger point is, we're being really brave because it's really vulnerable. If you're on this tonight, you probably know what the iceberg is, right? You understand that there's grief and loss that's triggering you. You've probably had some of those iceberg moments where you're losing your ever-loving mind over something ridiculous. But you know underneath what it really is. It's your grief and loss. It's your experience. What we see in our homes is that our partner is probably experiencing this. If there are children in your home, they're probably experiencing it. Your coworkers that are being jerks are probably experiencing it. We all have our traumas accumulated, and we're all being asked to sit still with it. Here's the deal. We need to figure out what it is, and we need to look it in the face. So it needs to be, I am feeling anxious for the first time in 3 years because I'm in the middle of a global pandemic and I'm having to sit in my grief. You need to say that to yourself 100 times a day, right? Because when we give the secret, right, the grief, when we give it silence, when we give it secrecy in our own heart, it just sits and festers. But when we speak it out to our support person, to our support group member, to our partner, to our mom, whoever, it breathes. And secrets can't survive in the light. Shame can't survive in the light. And when I'm wondering why I'm eating my entire pantry, and I say to my husband, why am I feeling anxious for the first time in so many years? It's because I'm having these repetitive thoughts about that time in the hospital. I'm having these repetitive thoughts about what that person said to me the last time. Having these repetitive thoughts about that sonogram, right? When we start speaking out what it actually is, that shame in us dies. It can't strangle us anymore. Judging what we're feeling and labeling ourselves as eating too much or anxious or being a jerk, like those are not things that are going to work for you. The problem isn't the emotion. The problem is how we treat ourselves in that emotion. When we judge ourselves, that's the most harmful thing that we can do in these moments. Feelings are for feeling, and we're supposed to feel them. But we've done a good job about shaking up that snow globe. We haven't had to feel them. And now we're being forced to feel them because we're in the middle of a global pandemic. It's nothing any of us signed up for. When you go to therapy, you sign up for therapy. When you sign up to go to your support group, you sign up to go to your support group. You know what you're in for. We didn't know what we were in for. And so now we're sitting and we're just having to breathe this all in and not really knowing what's going on with our bodies. No one signed up for this. So what's happened is also we are experiencing all these really difficult things that we've tried to smush down, avoid, and stay busy through. And we've lost our coping skills. Like, I don't know about you, but I have found Jesus. I have found peace. I have found the most clarity in my life on the floor of my yoga studio. It's hardwood. The instructor burns these like really great oils. I'm not like an oily person, but like they're good oils. There's beautiful lighting. It's like 8 p.m. at night and it's hot. And like, I have found all of the answers to all of the things and all the peace on that floor. And I don't have that floor right now. I don't have my car cry that I can listen to that one song that just like does it and I scream it and it feels good. I'm stuck in this house and one of these people above me is not sleeping right now. We're stuck in these situations and we don't have our tools. I think a lot of times when we talk about self-care, right? Like you've all said it, we've all said it, we've all done it. When we talk about self-care in our culture, in our world, we say like, oh, go get a manicure, go get a pedicure. Those things are great. They serve me well. But that's not even what it is. We've lost our routines and our rituals and how we take care of ourselves. So what self-care is right now is choosing you. Self-care doesn't have to be a manicure, pedicure, massage. Your roots can shine. We're okay. It is choosing you for a moment. And I don't know what your day looks like, but for me this morning, it was picking my favorite coffee cup because I knew that was the only thing I had time for today. And like I used my favorite coffee cup because that made me feel for a moment like I had control of taking care of myself. You probably don't have time for big self-care, but you also probably don't have that yoga floor. And so whatever it is that fills your soul, we have to do right now. So I want to talk to you about a few options that you have. I don't know if you're a note taker or where you're at with this, but we're going to talk about what you can do. So we need to take care of our mind and body and soul right now. Okay. So our mind is reading a book that speaks to your soul. I did an Instagram post about this weekend, but there is a book on my bedside table, and I look at that book every single day, and she knows me and I know her. And that book is, man, highlighter, notes. Like if my house is burning down, I'd get my people out, that book, and my pets. It was like $9. It's Okay, You're Not Okay by Megan Devine. If you need a book, it's good. And she spoke to my soul through that book, and I journaled and wrote and wrote and wrote. So that book sits on my bedside table, and I look at it, and I know that she's seen me in the darkest days. And when I read her, there's literally mascara stains on the cover of that book. I don't want to wipe it off. It's good. Like that was a hard time, and that book sat with me in it. So how we take care of our mind right now might be dusting off that book and digging back into something that spoke to your soul. It might be reading that scripture that you read every day in the deeps of your grief, right? It's plugging in. It might be that you play Scrabble with your husband. We are not like great about doing date night, but we've had several date nights where we cooked a fun dinner that wasn't like Trader Joe's frozen ravioli like it was tonight, like a fun dinner, and we did Scrabble, and it was great. It spoke to us, right? It's using our brain in a different way. I don't know about you, but in the midst of my grief journey, Facebook and Instagram were my worst enemies. I used Facebook for my support group. With my infertility, I would log on to that. But if another girl posted she was pregnant, I was going to lose my mind. And so it did not serve me well. And right now I'm noticing that social media is not serving me well in the same way that grief, and during my immediate crisis grief, it didn't. So it might be that you log off. Also, we're in front of the computer all day. Anyways, if we're working from home, like we probably need a screen break. So using our mind in a different way. We need to move our bodies. I don't know about you, but I'm not a runner. I'm going to tell you all right now, tonight is not the night to decide that you're a runner. Don't start running in the middle of a global pandemic. If you need nurture to your soul and your body, go take a walk outside. Don't run. Okay? We don't need to create these mean habits. I've seen all these weird posts about starting diets and like Whole30s and all these things that like don't nourish our soul in the middle of a global pandemic. Don't do that. If you're eating an entire package of Oreo cookies like I was 5 weeks ago, like maybe check in with yourself. But if you have Oreo cookies in your pantry on the regular, keep them in your pantry. So feeding our bodies by movement. So for me this morning, I haven't moved a lot. I went from breakfast to lunch, right? And so just being cognizant that sitting all day didn't serve me well yesterday. It's not going to serve me well today. So I'm going to take a walk outside. It's beautiful weather. I mean, if a pandemic did do us well in Texas, we did get a little bit lucky with the fact that it's spring. If it was summer, it would be a whole different presentation. So maybe just stretch. Maybe dig into yoga. Don't learn yoga from regular yoga. Learn it from restoration yoga. Okay? Leaning into what your body needs to feel seen. And then nourish your soul during this time. Your body is experiencing a million different trauma responses. Seeing your body, and acknowledging that you want to pour into her is beautiful. So that might be reading your Bible. That might be meditation. That really could be a home-cooked meal. That could be calling your best friend with an asterisk next to it. I have a best friend. She's wonderful. But she's not the best friend that I call when I'm in the middle of grief, because she will then tell me that her husband didn't unload the dishwasher. That's not the best friend I'm going to call right now. Okay? You are going to call the best friend that's going to ask you how you are and actually listen, right? We're going to talk to the people that understand. You are going to talk to each other. because the grief that you are experiencing is probably something your mom, your sister, your best friend does not understand. So we're going to call people, we're going to make posts on your support group page to people who understand the trenches, right? So nourishing our soul and what feels good. So my soul nourishment plan was, we had a really lovely dinner and I cooked it and I felt proud of myself because I'm a real bad cook. And it was half homemade, half not homemade. So it was a good safety. But I literally sat and had a beautifully deep discussion with my husband. And we talked about how all of the grief is bubbling up and all the fears are starting to bubble up with that. And that filled my cup. And then I walked down the hall and took a bubble bath. And I played some Leon Bridges' River, which if you don't listen to that song, you need to. And I just had a dark bathtub soak to cleanse my body from all those hard things I had just said. Right? So whatever it is, you have to make a self-care plan. Mind, body, and soul. So tonight, after we get off, write down 3 things of each of those things that feel good. If you're a runner, you can write that, but nothing else. Okay. So I'm also going to teach you a little bit about grounding. Maybe if my slide clicks. There we go. There we go. Okay. So this is grounding techniques. If you've gone to therapy, your therapist has probably taught you about this. This is something that when I most recently went to therapy, my therapist would tell me about, because I was having a lot of interrupting thoughts, a lot of flashbacks. And so something that's really helpful in those moments when things feel spiraling is kind of the word I like to say, is we can take control. So I don't know about you, but when I'm feeling anxious, I need to grasp for something. And this helps us feel like we're doing something to feel better. If you have someone in your life that is like, just calm down, take a deep breath. Like, those aren't your people to call. This is a tool that you can Google grounding exercises and save a beautiful graphic. I liked this because it was visual, but there's some like beautiful watercolor ones, and save it on your phone and pull it up in the middle of a hard time. Because what I did is I tried to remember this in my first therapy session. In my second therapy session, I came back and I was like, you taught me something that was incredibly complex. And in the middle of an anxiety attack, I couldn't do it because I was trying to do it the right way and I couldn't do it. And that just made me more anxious. So save this. So basically, you're going to think about 5 things you can see. So you're going to label it off. So I'm in my dining room right now. I can see my microwave, my oven. I can see the Google Home, a candle, and a plant. Okay. Do you see how that just brought me back to where I am? None of you knew I was in my kitchen. I probably didn't either because I'm so focused in. It just brought me back to the surroundings. Then we're going to do 4 things you can touch. So I can feel my blouse, can feel my skin on my hands is really dry because I'm washing them so much, can feel my water bottle, and I can touch the computer. Do you see how we're kind of coming back? We're bringing this back. I'm going to think about what I can hear, what I can smell. I can never think of 2 things I can smell. 1 is fine. And then 1 thing you can taste. After you've walked yourself through this whole entire exercise, you might need to do it again. But what I always remember telling myself in the moments that I use this is I feel my feet firmly planted on the floor. So when everything feels spirally and all those memories come back, I feel my feet on the ground. I've got some control. I can plant them deeply. I can sit and I can lean my back as hard as I can into this chair. I am safe. I am here. I'm okay. And so after I ground, I like to tell people to do a mantra. So I have different mantras for different feelings. So I have an anxiety mantra. Anxiety is just something I battled my whole life. And so that came from years ago. And then I have a mantra for flashbacks. And it's, I am safe, I am planted, I am grounded. And so then I do it after I do my grounding exercise. So if you have a traumatic memory specifically that keeps flooding into your mind, that could be a really helpful way to plug into that. I don't know about your specific experience with grief, but what I do know is that a lot of us experience grief brain. In my dad, it actually looked a lot like he had Alzheimer's. He would tell us the same stories over and over and over again. I saw that in myself. I wasn't able to process or compute things correctly. And so if you are even noticing that your brain is super cloudy in a moment, this grounding exercise can kind of clear it up because it's reminding you of where you are. Your body isn't trying to figure it out. You're teaching your brain where you are. So I'm going to teach you about something that I love and I heard the other day. So Glennon Doyle Melton taught me this concept, and it's called sistering. And when I talked to Peyton about your group, I thought about this after I heard Glennon teach about this. And this is called sistering. And why I want you to know about it is because I don't think the world understands your grief. I don't think that you can call your best friend or, your boss and tell them that you're grieving in this unique way. They don't get it. They're going to say things like, I'm so sorry, but I'm so glad that you have this perspective. What a gift. They're going to say these things that don't feel real or unique to your experience. It's going to immediately make you feel invalidated. It's going to make you spirally. And so one of my favorite things about counseling, any kind of group that brings people together that have this knowing, is that you don't have to say those weird, terrible things to each other because you just know. So I work at Gladney for part-time. I do their curriculum development, and our attorney had just celebrated 30 years. And so this board member stood up and said these beautiful things about her. He's kind of a talky board member. I am too. I'm having to take a water break. And he said, give this great example. There's this hole, and there's this person in the hole. And this attorney walks by, and he's like, you should sue them because you fell in the hole. And this person's like, can you help me get out of this hole? And he's like, you should definitely sue him. And this doctor's like, you probably broke your ankle in that hole. And they just keep walking and they keep diagnosing. Or one guy's like, yeah, maybe if you dug some stairs into the hole, you could climb out. Like that could work. And then there's this friend that walks by, and finally the guy's like, thank God, get me out of here. Like, help, grab my hand. And the friend jumps right down in that hole. And he says, what are you doing? You're supposed to get me out of here. I can't get out of here if you're down here. And he says, we're going to get out together. Right? Because none of us were expecting this global pandemic. And none of us were expecting this grief. We didn't sign up for it. We didn't ask for it. It's not what we put on our vision board. It's not what we played when we were little girls. Right? This isn't it. But you jump in that hole with each other by showing up even tonight. So sistering is this awesome concept because it was invented by a carpenter who was probably a male. And I'm gender stereotyping, it's fine. And basically, I'm not going to explain this well, but the jolt, if you're trying to fasten something, is like an L. And when you sister, you put them up against you. How do you double L? I don't know how you double L. You put them up against each other. And it supports it. It makes it stronger. The male carpenter invented this term, right? Sistering. And basically sistering is this. I'm going to bolt into you. And you now can stand firm because I bolted into you. I'm not going to say all of those crappy, terrible things that all the other people are going to say to you, right? I'm going to say to you, this is terrible. This sucks. It's not fair you have to feel this. It's not fair you lost busyness in your yoga floor. It's not fair. I've seen you hurt before, and I know you can make it through it. And I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to sit with you in the hole, and I'm going to bolt up in you because we're going to be okay. You get to sister each other by knowing this grief together. It's nothing any of you would have signed up for doing right? Like, this is not what you want to do. You don't want to know this, but you do. And it is your responsibility as a woman who has walked this to jolt next to that other woman and sit in that hole with her, because we should not have to do this alone. Global pandemic should not happen to us, but we also shouldn't have to sit in them by ourselves. So I want to empower you with that tonight. I want to leave you with that piece tonight. I also want to tell you that if there is a clinical impairment of your daily functioning and the memories are flooding you and you need someone else, I can do telehealth with you. I can find you someone to do therapy with, because we don't all have that person we can bolt into. I don't want you to do this alone. So we will make sure, Peyton and I will make sure that you have someone that can walk this with you. You might not be qualified, to help someone through it if it's really, really impairing them. So it's also your responsibility as a sister to reach out to Peyton and say, hey, we've got this sister in the trenches. We need to help her. Okay. So I'm going to put some contact information on there for you. If you need me to help you in any way, if you need me to help you find a therapist in your area, please reach out. You are not alone in this journey. I am so grateful to share a screen with all of you, because it is a screen full of brave women. And I'm so honored and so grateful to you, Peyton. Thank you for letting me look at these beautiful faces. I'm so grateful.
Trying to unmute myself, sorry. Thank you so much. I wrote down a ton. I wrote down tons of stuff. I had to move over to a book. So, I think you gave us a lot of really good, concrete tools to work with. So I loved and I want to challenge everybody who's listening to do those 3 things: the mind, body, and soul. Like, make a list for yourself. And then I have the grounding techniques conveniently placed on my refrigerator, of all things. So I do know that works. We have a variety of people in this home who need those grounding techniques too. So we'll probably try and find a graphic that we can share within the Facebook